They thought they had stumbled upon a fresh start, an opportunity to leave behind all the noise, the pain, and the shadows of their past lives. Anna and her daughter Lily had never met the relative who left them this house, a distant aunt no one had spoken of in years, whose existence was a faint whisper in family stories. But now, the old house in the hills was theirs. It was a house with a story written into every nail, every floorboard, a place wrapped in silence and old pine trees that seemed to lean in close, watching, waiting. To the outside world, it was just an abandoned relic, fading under years of dust and neglect. But to Anna and Lily, it was a chance, a quiet refuge, a home. When they first arrived, the house looked like something from a forgotten time. Its windows were cracked, the paint peeling, and the door hanging a little off its hinges. Yet, beneath the decay, there was a strange beauty, a sort of calm that wrapped itself around the soul like a heavy blanket. Anna remembered the first night clearly. The cold settled deep into the bones. The kind of cold that isn't just the absence of heat, but the presence of something else. The air felt thick, as if the house was holding its breath, waiting to see what they would do next. Lily, barely asleep, clung to her mother's side, her small hands trembling. That night, Anna heard it, the faintest sound, almost like a whisper just beyond hearing. At first, she thought it was a wind, but the wind had never felt so close, so deliberate. It was as if the house was trying to speak, trying to warn them, or maybe just watching, silently judging their presence. In the days that followed, the house settled around them, its creaks and groans becoming a part of their lives. But the quiet was never just silence. It was filled with noises that had no source. Footsteps pacing the empty hall, soft knocks on walls where no one stood, doors slowly opening and closing by themselves. Anna told herself it was nothing, that old houses had stories, and those stories sometimes came alive in unexpected ways. She reassured Lily that everything was fine, that this was their home now. But deep down, she felt the weight of something unseen pressing in, something that did not want to be disturbed. The nights grew longer, the darkness deeper, and with it, the presence became harder to ignore. It was no longer just sounds. It was a feeling, cold and heavy, like a shadow resting on their chests, stealing their breath. The air grew thick with a scent she couldn't place, metallic, sharp, and faintly sweet, lingering just under the surface of every room. Anna found herself watching Lily more closely, noticing how the girl's bright eyes seemed to dim when they wandered into certain rooms. How sometimes Lily would stop speaking mid-sentence, staring off into empty corners as if seeing something no one else could. It was clear they were not alone, but what lived in that house was not something that could be fought with words or locked doors. It was patient, waiting for something, waiting for them, and it had made its choice. Tonight, you will hear their story, the true account of a mother and daughter who thought they were merely inheriting a home, but instead, they inherited a presence older than time itself, a presence that watches in the dark, that waits beneath the floorboards, that whispers in the silence and watches in the shadows. This is a story of fear of survival and of a legacy far darker than any family secret. Welcome to NeuroNightmares, where your darkest fears are just the beginning. Prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear is not just a ghost story. It is the truth behind a house that did not want new owners. It wanted victims. Stay close, stay quiet, and listen carefully, because once you step inside, there is no turning back. The house sat on a quiet stretch of land in upstate New York, far from the bustle of any town or city. It was the kind of place where mornings began shrouded in fog so thick you could almost reach out and touch it, and the world beyond seemed to disappear into a soft, gray haze. The hills rolled gently around the property, covered in pines that whispered softly whenever the wind found its way through their needles. Approaching the house, you could see it was worn by time. The paint had long since peeled away, leaving the wood underneath exposed and weathered. The front porch sagged under the weight of years, and every floorboard beneath your feet creaked and groaned with the slightest step. The windows were clouded, their glass stained by dust and time, offering only faint glimpses of the rooms inside. This was no ordinary house. It had been left untouched for decades. Inside, everything seemed frozen in an earlier time. The air smelled faintly of musk and old wood. Antique furniture covered in lace and velvet sat silently in rooms draped in shadows. The wallpaper was peeling and yellowed, curling away at the edges like brittle leaves. Dust hung in the air like a soft curtain, untouched and thick, covering everything with the same gentle insistence that time passed but nothing moved forward here. Anna first saw the house as a chance, a lifeline in a life filled with uncertainty and struggle. She was a single mother, carrying the heavy burden of responsibility for her daughter Lily. Anna had worked hard, juggling jobs, sleepless nights, and an endless worry about what tomorrow would bring. The inheritance had come as a shock, an unexpected letter from a lawyer, a few brief lines about the passing of a great-aunt Anna barely remembered hearing about. The house, as strange and worn as it was, promised shelter, stability, the possibility of a fresh start. And so, with her young daughter clutching her hand, Anna made the journey to the old family estate. Lily was only 7, but even from the moment they arrived, she behaved differently here. She wasn't the bubbly, carefree child Anna had known in the city. Instead, Lily seemed quiet, withdrawn, her gaze often distant, as if she were listening to something no one else could hear. She talks to the lady in the mirror, Anna told a neighbor one afternoon, half laughing but with a nervous edge in her voice. The lady in the mirror was a presence only Lily seemed to see. Anna had noticed her daughter spending long stretches staring into a large, ornate mirror hanging in the hallway, whispering, sometimes smiling, other times with a look of deep concentration. Anna wanted to believe it was only a child's imagination, but there was something about Lily's tone, calm and matter-of-fact, that unsettled her. The house settled around them like a living thing. It creaked and sighed with the wind, the sound of its own weight shifting as night fell. Anna learned to listen to the small noises, the groans of old wood, the faint scratching from somewhere deep in the walls, the occasional tapping at the windows. At first, she told herself these were the sounds of an old house adapting to new inhabitants. But as the days passed, the noises became harder to explain away. The clocks were the first real oddity. There were several around the house, and every single one stopped at exactly 3:13 in the morning. Anna would reset them before bed, but no matter what she did, come dawn, every clock was frozen at the same minute. She asked Lily if she knew what the time meant. Lily only shrugged and said softly, "It's a time when the lady watches." Anna wanted to dismiss it, but the unease grew. There was also the locked door in the attic, a door that no key seemed to fit. Anna tried every key she could find, even taking locks to a locksmith, but the door would not open. The attic remained a silent secret, dark and closed off, a place that refused to reveal itself. Lily's drawings changed in those early weeks too. At first, she sketched sunflowers, butterflies, and sunny skies, images bright and innocent, but then her pictures began to darken. Tall, shadowy figures appeared, shapes that stood at the edge of forests, faces blurred and staring with hollow eyes. When Anna asked what the drawings were, Lily would say simply, "The lady who watches." Anna felt her heart tighten every time she saw those drawings spread across the kitchen table. The fear in her daughter's eyes was real, though she tried not to let it show. Nights were the hardest. Anna would lie awake, listen to sound that made no sense. Footsteps pacing the hallways just beyond Lily's room. Soft tapping against the window panes. Whispers that seemed to float in the air, but vanished when she tried to focus on them. One night, after checking on Lily, Anna passed through the nursery door and stopped dead in the hallway. The air was colder than it should have been. A deep, unnatural cold that seemed to suck the warmth from her skin and fill the space with a heavy silence. And then she thought she heard it. Her name, whispered so faintly she wasn't sure she had imagined it. "Anna?" She turned, eyes wide, but the hallway was empty. Only the faintest breath of wind stirred the curtains. Anna swallowed hard, telling herself it was nothing, just the house playing tricks on her mind. But she knew better. The house was changing. It was waking. And something was watching them, waiting for them to understand that they were not just guests here. The calm before the storm was real, and it was only just beginning. After those first restless nights, the uneasy feeling in the house began to grow heavier, settling into every corner like a thick fog. It wasn't just the cold air anymore, or the strange ticking of clocks frozen. at 3:13. No. Now the very fabric of their lives inside the house started to shift in ways Anna couldn't explain and didn't want to believe. It began with Lily. At first, Anna noticed small things. Her daughter would wake up in the middle of the night, standing in her room, eyes glazed over, unresponsive. One night, Anna found Lily standing by the doorway to the hallway, barefoot and pale, whispering words Anna couldn't understand. She tried to call her back to bed, but Lily didn't move. "Lily?" Anna's voice was soft but urgent. "Come back to bed." But Lily's head tilted slightly, like she was listening to something far away. Then she turned slowly, walking down the hall without a sound. Anna followed, heart pounding, but when she reached the hallway, Lily had vanished. This wasn't a one-time thing. Night after night, Lily would leave her room while still asleep, wander in the creaking halls of the house as if drawn by some unseen force. Sometimes she'd stand at the foot of the stairs, staring down into the dark below. Other times, she would reach out toward the mirrors lining the walls, her fingers brushing the glass as if trying to touch what was inside. It was terrifying to watch. Anna felt helpless, unable to wake her daughter fully or understand what was pulling her out of bed each night. And then the noises began. At first, it was soft tapping, almost rhythmic like a slow drumbeat coming from behind the walls. Anna would lie in bed, listening through the silence, heart hammering as the tapping continued, steady and patient. She pressed her ear against the plaster and could swear it wasn't coming from any natural cause. It sounded deliberate, like someone or something was trying to communicate, to get her attention. Along with the tapping came shadows in the mirrors. It started with quick flashes, flickers of movement that made Anna's breath catch. Sometimes, when she looked into the hallway mirror, she could see shapes shifting just beyond her reflection, dark forms that didn't belong to her or Lily. The shadows didn't have clear outlines. They were like smudges of darkness, hovering and stretching in ways that made no sense, almost as if the glass itself was alive and breathing. Anna tried to convince herself she was imagining it. Tired eyes, overactive nerves. But deep down, she knew the truth. There was another strange thing, too, a scent that appeared only at night. It was metallic, with a sweetness that clung to the air and settled in her nostrils long after it disappeared. She first noticed it one evening as she checked on Lily, the smell stronger in the nursery. It was unlike anything Anna had ever smelled before, and it brought with it a sense of unease that rooted her to the spot. The nights grew longer and darker. Sleep became a fragile thing for Anna. She would lie awake, heart racing, haunted by the tapping, the shadows, the smell that no one else seemed to notice. Her mind began to fray. She forgot things. A meal left on the stove, a phone call she meant to make, important dates that slipped from her memory like sand through fingers. Conversations with Lily felt disconnected, as if she were talking to a stranger. Lily, too, changed. The bright spark of childhood slowly dimmed. She stopped smiling, stopped playing. Her voice became flat and distant, lacking the warmth Anna remembered. When she spoke, it was in short, clipped sentences, as if she were repeating words she didn't fully understand. Anna's frustration and fear mounted. She felt trapped, caught in a waking nightmare with no clear way out. In her desperate search for answers, Anna finally dared to enter the attic, the locked room she had never been able to open before. One evening, with a crowbar in hand and trembling hands, she forced the door open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Old trunks, covered in cobwebs, sat in the corners. But what caught Anna's attention was a stack of worn journals, yellowed with age and bound in cracked leather. She began to read. The journals belonged to her great-aunt, the woman who had lived in this house for over 4 decades without ever leaving. The pages were filled with detailed notes, strange rituals, offerings made to unseen forces, and a chilling phrase repeated over and over: ownership passes through blood. The house accepts or rejects. There were accounts of sacrifices made to keep the house's power contained. Warnings of a force that claimed those who dared to live within its walls. Anna's hands shook as she turned the pages. There were no photographs of visitors, no records of the great-aunt ever leaving the property. It was as if she had been swallowed by the house, becoming part of its dark history. The realization settled over Anna like a lead weight. This was no ordinary inheritance. The house wasn't just a place, it was a presence, a force that had lived and waited for decades, growing stronger with each passing year. As days passed, the power of the house began to show itself more clearly. At night, lights flickered and went out one by one, leaving rooms plunged in darkness. Doors slammed shut on their own, sometimes locking Anna and Lily inside or out. Anna started hearing breath, quiet, deliberate breathing, just behind her when she was alone in the house. It never came from a person or animal. It wasn't the creak of wood or the whistle of wind. It was something else. Each breath was a reminder they were not alone. The house was awake, and it was waiting. Before we return to Anna's story, let me share with you a chilling true case that echoes the very fears now gripping her and her daughter within that old house in upstate New York. It happened in the early 1970s, not far from the border of Vermont and New Hampshire, in a rural area much like the one Anna now calls home. A family, the Whitmores, had just inherited a centuries-old farmhouse, one that had been in the family for generations but left vacant for many years. The Whitmores moved in full of hope and determination. They wanted a fresh start, a peaceful life away from the noise of the city. But it wasn't long before the peace they sought slipped away. Within just 6 months, the family fled. They left everything behind, the furniture, the farm animals, even personal belongings, as if the house itself demanded they leave, and leave quickly. The reason? Voices. Not the kind you hear in passing, or the creaks and groans you expect from an old wooden structure. These voices came from the cellar. Soft at first, whispers that could be mistaken for the wind or the settling of the house, but growing louder, more urgent over time. The words repeated again and again. Return what was promised. No one knew what the house was referring to or who had made the promise, but the Whitmores were convinced that whatever it was owed and overdue. Years later, long after the family had vanished from the farmhouse, new owners found a hidden compartment beneath the cellar floorboards. Inside, a weathered journal lay buried, its pages damp and fragile, but its words still legible. The last entry was brief, chilling, and full of dread. The house is hungry again. The journal spoke of debts unpaid, of offerings made and broken, of a force that held the house in its grasp, demanding tribute in return for shelter. It was a warning and a confession. This story, though distant in time and place, shares something with Anna's experience, something unsettling and unavoidable. Like the Whitmores, Anna is beginning to realize that the house she inherited may not be hers simply because of blood or will. She is inheriting something else, a responsibility that was never discussed, a burden no one wanted to carry. The house doesn't just belong to her. It's holding her in place, waiting to see what she will give in return for staying. And with every passing day, Anna's hope for a normal life fades, replaced by a creeping dread that this inheritance is more than just walls and memories. It's a contract she never agreed to, a debt that must be paid. As the nights passed, the tension in the house thickened, settling over Anna and Lily like an unseen weight pressing down on their every breath. What had begun as strange noises and unexplained chills now grew into something far more terrifying, something that took hold of their very souls. One night, just past the hour of 3:13 a.m., the time when every clock in the house seemed to stop, Anna woke to an eerie silence. The usual creaks and groans of the old house had faded into nothingness, replaced by a stillness that felt like waiting. Drawn by a force she could not explain, Anna climbed the narrow stairs to the attic, the only room still locked until now. The door, which had refused to open for weeks, now creaked ajar as if inviting her in. Inside, beneath the pale glow of moonlight filtering through a cracked window, stood Lily. But this was no ordinary sight. Her daughter's eyes were rolled back, showing only the whites, and her body swayed gently, caught in some trance. Anna's heart pounded fiercely in her chest as she called Lily's name, but the girl did not respond. The air in the attic grew cold, sharp enough to bite at Anna's skin. Suddenly, Lily's head snapped toward her, and a low, unnatural voice whispered words Anna could not understand. Frozen in fear, Anna reached out, pulling her daughter close. The spell broken, but the horror had only just begun. That same week, Anna found an old album hidden beneath layers of dust in the attic. A collection of black and white photographs depicting the family through generations. As she flipped through the fragile pages, her breath caught. In one photo of a birthday party, an unfamiliar figure appeared standing in the background, pale, blurred, and watching. What was strange was that when Anna had looked at this album before, the figure had not been there. Each time she looked again, the figure shifted, seeming to come closer, more distinct, until Anna could see the face. Hollow eyes, a cold, unreadable expression, as if watching and waiting for something. That night, Anna's dreams turned violent. She found herself trapped in a house, but no longer as herself. Instead, she was a prisoner of the shadows, chased by unseen hands that clawed her skin, tearing flesh and spirit alike. She awoke with a gasp, cold sweat soaking her pajamas. And to her horror, she noticed bruises blossoming across her arms and neck, fresh and unexplained. Was it possible the nightmares were crossing over? That what haunted the house was now reaching inside her very body? Desperate for answers and relief, Anna sought help beyond the boundaries of her understanding. First, she turned to a local priest, a man known for his calm demeanor and firm faith. She begged him to come with her, to bless the house, to cleanse whatever had taken root in its walls. But when the priest arrived, he stood at the threshold, staring at the house as if it were a living beast. After a long, heavy silence, he stepped back and said only this: "I cannot go inside. This place is beyond what I can help." His refusal sent a shiver down Anna's spine. If even he was afraid, what chance did she have? Not willing to give up, Anna then called upon a woman reputed for her abilities to see and speak with forces unseen, an experienced psychic who agreed to visit. The woman crossed the threshold with determination, but the moment she stepped inside, her knees buckled. She collapsed to the floor, gasping, her eyes wide with terror. In her final words, whispered barely above her breath, she uttered, "You accepted the cost." Before Anna could ask what she meant, the woman was gone, vanished as suddenly as she had appeared. It was in that moment, in the dark silence that followed, that a dreadful realization took root in Anna's mind. The gray tance would have been thick with legal jargon, but buried within it was something far more binding than any contract. A binding written in ink, yes, but sealed by blood. Anna understood then that the house had never truly chosen her. It was Lily who had been chosen. The truth slammed into Anna with all the force of a hurricane. The child she was trying to protect was at the center of it all. The house as whole was anchored not to her, but to Lily. Everything, the whispers, the cold touches, the restless nights, was drawn to the daughter's very presence. That night, Anna gathered what little strength she had left. With trembling hands, she grabbed her keys and took Lily's small hand in hers. Together, they stepped out into the night, leaving behind the walls that had imprisoned them, hoping to escape the nightmare. But morning came with a cruel twist. Anna woke up inside the very house she had fled. Her hands gripped the worn wood of the bedside table, and across the room, Lily lay asleep, peaceful as if nothing had happened. Yet Anna had no memory of how she returned. No memory of walking back through the creaking front door. Only a lingering sense that the house was not done with them, that it had plans far beyond her understanding or control. This was the breaking point. The moment where fear stopped being just a feeling and became reality, where hope turned fragile and desperation took hold, and where the true depth of the horror was revealed, not in what the house was, but what it demanded. The night had fallen heavy and thick over the house, wrapping every corner in darkness that pressed close like a living thing. Anna stood at the foot of the attic stairs, heart hammering so loudly it felt as if the whole house might tremble in response. She was alone, or at least that's what she told herself. Yet every instinct screamed that she was watched, that something was waiting. Her hands shook as she gripped the worn handle of a crowbar, the metal cold against her skin. She had made her decision. If the house would not release them, then she would force it to. The locked room, the one that had taunted her since she arrived, would no longer hold its secrets. Tonight, she would break through. With a steadying breath, Anna ascended the creaking stairs to the attic once more, the dim beam of her flashlight piercing the shadows, but revealing nothing to comfort her. She placed a crowbar against the old wooden door, its surface scarred and stained by years of neglect. She pried and pressed, the wood groaning under the pressure. And then, as if the house itself yielded to her will, the door gave way, swinging open slowly with a reluctant creak. What she found inside was almost unbearably still. A cradle sat in the center of the room, its wood carved with unfamiliar symbols, swirling shapes that seemed to shimmer faintly in the moonlight. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of earth and something faintly metallic, like iron, old and cold. Anna stepped forward, each movement slow and cautious, her eyes fixed on the cradle. Then, as if stirred by her presence, the walls of the room seemed to change. The peeling paint began to drip, bleed, a thick, dark liquid trickling down the surface like tears, staining the floorboards and pooling at her feet. Anna's breath hitched. This was no ordinary house. This was a place alive with hunger. It fed on fear, on blood, on life itself. And now, it was revealing what it was. From the shadows, a figure began to form. Not a ghost in any familiar sense, but a presence ancient beyond reckoning. It moved with a slow, purposeful grace, its shape shifting and flickering, as if woven from smoke and shadow. Its eyes, if they could be called that, glowed faintly with an eerie light, unblinking and cold. Anna felt the air grow thick with silence, broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing. The presence spoke, not in words, but in a rush of images and feelings that tore through her mind. Promises made long ago, pacts sealed in blood, debts owed through generations. It was not a spirit seeking peace. It was a force demanding tribute. Anna's heart shattered as she realized the terrible truth. This entity wanted Lily, not because the child was innocent, but because Lily was a key, the living bond that tied the house's hunger to this world. With a trembling voice, Anna begged. "Take me instead," she pleaded. "Take me and leave my daughter free. Please." The presence regarded her, its form pulsing like a dark flame. For a moment, time seemed to stretch and fold. Then, slowly, a nod, not of kindness, but of calculation, of finality. Anna felt a crushing weight descend upon her chest. The world spun, shadows closing in around her. Then nothing, darkness. When she awoke, the house was silent. Still, empty. Anna opened her eyes to find herself alone in the very room she had confronted the presence. Lily was gone with the small handprints on the dusty windows, the drawings taped to the walls, the tiny shoes left by the door. Even the photographs, those fragile memories frozen in time, had vanished. It was as if Lily had never been there at all. The presence no longer whispered, no longer stirred. Its hunger was sated for now. Anna's victory was a hollow one. She had survived, but at a cost she could never fully comprehend. The house remained, waiting, watching, and somewhere, deep in the silence, a cradle rocked gently on its own. The house stands once again, quiet, empty, and waiting. Its windows, like dark eyes, stare out over the overgrown lawn, untouched by time but untouched by life as well. The for sale sign hangs crookedly in the yard, swaying in the cold wind, a silent invitation that no one has yet accepted. Days stretch into weeks. Weeks stretch into months. But the house remains unsold, stubborn and still, as if holding its breath. Inside, the room sit frozen in time, the faded wallpaper peeling, the worn floorboards creaking beneath unseen footsteps. Dust settles thick on forgotten furniture, and the air carries a weight that no fresh breeze can shake off. Outside, the neighbors speak in hushed tones. Some say the house is cursed. Others claim to have heard a child's laughter in the dead of night, soft and distant, but impossible to place. And always, the clock on the porch stops at exactly 3:13 in the morning. At that very hour, when the world is most silent, there are reports, glimpses from behind curtains or across shadowed streets, of a small figure standing at the attic window. A little girl with wide eyes, watching and waiting. But those who have gone to investigate find the house empty. The current occupant, if there is one, insists they live alone. No children, no visitors, just silence. And yet, the feeling remains. Outside the house, Anna no longer moves with the passage of time. She does not age, nor does she rest. Sleep is a stranger to her now. She exists in a strange limbo, caught between waking and dreaming, between here and somewhere else. She waits. Her eyes, once full of hope, now carry the weight of all she has lost. Waiting for what? No one knows. Perhaps waiting for the day when the house finally lets go, or when she can finally escape its hold. But that day never comes. For some nightmares do end, but their echoes echo deep within the mind, refusing to fade. And here in this house, those echoes gather and grow. This was not just a story of a haunted home. It was a story of possession, of loss, and of a price paid in ways words can barely capture. A story where time stands still, where innocence disappears, and where a mother's love fights to break free, but cannot. Thank you for joining us in this chapter of NeuroNightmares, where your darkest fears are just the beginning. Remember, some nightmares may end, but the mind remembers. Until next time, stay watchful and never let your guard down. If the story you just heard has settled into your thoughts, lingering like a shadow you can't quite shake, then you're in the right place. NeuroNightmares is here to take you further into the unexplained, the unsettling, the tales that burrow deep beneath your skin and refuse to let go. Every week, we bring you true stories, accounts of real people, real places, and the unexplainable events that challenge everything you think you know about fear. These aren't just ghost stories told to frighten you before bedtime. These are experiences that twist the mind and test the limits of reality. So if you want to stay ahead of the unknown, if you want to face the darkness head-on, and hear what others dare not speak aloud, make sure you subscribe to NeuroNightmares. Join our community of those who seek truth in the shadows, who refuse to close their eyes even when the night grows long and silent. And as you lay your head down tonight, remember this: sleep lightly, because you never truly know what's watching. Until next time,